Very good morning to all of you. I, Abhishek Dabra, Assistant Professor Pharmacology, on the behalf of Guru Gobind Singh College of Pharmacy, Yamunanagar, welcomes you all to the webinar series. Our college is Guru Gobind Singh College of Pharmacy, was started in 2002 under the dynamic leadership of Sardar Bhupinder Singh Ji Johar with a vision which is to develop as a center of excellence in the pharmacy education where leaders in pharmacy practice, teaching, and public sectors are nurtured and developed to serve the mankind. The college is running under the aegis of Guru Nanak Khalsa College Management Committee, Yamunanagar, which is serving in the domain of education since 1968. Our college is running B Pharmacy since 2002, which is NB accredited. We also have D Pharmacy and M Pharmacy in our college. Now, today, the speaker for our session is a young and dynamic personality of our college, Mr. Pradeep Kumar, who is serving in the field of pharmacy since last 8 years. Sir was pharmacovigilance officer at Wipro and Delhi office. Sir has been served as an senior pharmacovigilance associate at MICC, also worked in Absar Life Sciences at Delhi office and US office situated in New Jersey. Respected sir has also worked as an assistant manager at MICC Hyderabad. Now, I would like to request our speaker, sir, kindly start the session entitled Pharmacovigilance a Drug Safety Initiative. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pradeep, and I hope all of you are doing fine. Today's topic for discussion would be about pharmacovigilance and try to cover what pharmacovigilance does and how the process works, what are the basic criterias, how everybody gets to know that, okay, one drug has to be banned or not. That's basically a part of drug safety. So we'll start with the introduction of pharmacovigilance. Pharmacovigilance is basically a science which deals in finding out what side effects any drug could potentially have. Uh, as we all know, we do clinical trials for that, but pharmacovigilance is the last phase of that trial. So pharmacovigilance, the word has actually come from a pharmacon that we all know is a drug, and vigilare means to keep alert, to keep watch, to see what's going on. It's kind of a police work. So we'll keep looking for side effects, no matter how old the drug is. Even if the drug is 15 years old, 10 years old, just launched or whatever, even if it's in clinical trials, we'll still look for the side effects from that drug. Uh, so pharmacovigilance basically it has a history. Previously, for majority of our lives, pharmacists never bothered about the aftermarket side effects of the drug. What happens is we used to have clinical trials. Clinical trials were done, and patients were tested. Healthy patients were tested, and then the drug was released into the market. Once the market has received the product, then the drug, then we don't have an option to see if any new side effects have occurred or any new side effects have been observed. So it was never being done until this one drug came up. We called it thalidomide. Thalidomide was a drug given to pregnant women for motion sickness. Most of the pregnant women have motion sickness, so this drug was given to them around 1970s. So in 72s or 73s, we started seeing babies with uh, underdeveloped body parts, like limbs were not developed, hands were not developed properly, other side effects were there. So these things were never checked in clinical trial. Uh, as we don't know, we don't do clinical trials on pregnant women. We do it on healthy volunteers. So we never got to know what possible side effects the drug could have on the newborn baby. So what was happening was the drug was entering the child through placenta, and the drug was causing side effects in the child, not in the woman. The patient who was taking the drug was perfectly fine, but in this case, the patient the child also became a patient because he was also receiving the medication through the placental barriers. So then we got to know that okay, this is a serious problem, and WHO started working around it to see if we could do something other than clinical trials. And then the pharmacovigilance program was born. The Uppsala Center started this program. WHO, World Health Organization, it started this program at its Uppsala Center. Now it's also governed by that same center. It governs all the pharmacovigilance practices all over the world and regulations, etc. So then they started working on things how to proceed with identifying such side effects that could happen uh, beyond the scope of clinical trials. What happens in clinical trials is only for volunteers. What happens after the drug is being released into the market, then some side effects could happen, and they do happen. So pharmacovigilance was basically an area of drug safety in which we are studying the side effects of the drugs or adverse events of the drugs after the drug has been released into the market. So once the clinical trials are over, then pharmacovigilance will start, and it's a never ending process until the life cycle of the drug. The pharmacovigilance will keep on tracking what side effects it's causing, even if the drug is 50 years old. It doesn't matter. So whatever drug is into the market, even if it's not a drug, a medical device, an injection, or anything could be considered. Anything that we used as a pharmaceutical intervention for any disease, or even if without a disease. Still, if you take any OTCs, over the counter medications, you have some side effects that also will be covered in this area of pharma. So we have some basic terminologies around pharmacovigilance. Before knowing what pharmacovigilance, how the process works, we need to understand a few things. Like I've been using this word side effect because most people understand side effect as a problematic thing. But actually, the term side effect, it could be beneficial too. If let's say for paracetamol is used, it was developed for something else. Now we use it for n number of reasons: for pain, for fever. So these were initially considered side effects because they were after effects or additional effects other than indication of that drug. So everything that comes under that category will be a side effect. Anything that is not intentional, that was not initially intentional, any indication that was approved, but then we found another indication, so that also is a side effect of that drug. So even that is covered in pharmacovigilance. Anything that could happen to you while being on a drug will be covered under pharmacovigilance. So there are two things that come from here. One is harmful thing, one is we don't know if it's harmful or not. So anything that is in a broader concentration, broader perspective, that will be called adverse event. Even if I sneeze when I'm taking any medication, that's an adverse event. If a mosquito bit me, that's also an adverse event. It seems silly, but actually it's an adverse event. We will find out if the bee had anything to do with it. Actually, this was a case, and people starting taking these adverse events as well. What happened was the drug was actually entering the bee, and it was attracting the bee towards that particular patient. So it becomes an adverse event for us. So anything you had headaches, you had nausea, you had anything, any normal thing, any beneficial thing is also an adverse event. It's an event, it's not a side effect, it's not a reaction, it's nothing, it's just an event. Any event that happened to you while you were on the drug will be called an adverse event. So there's a further category to this. If we are able to establish that okay, this problem was actually caused by the drug, if we have a causal relationship, this thing, if we have if we add causal relationship to the adverse event, then it becomes an adverse drug reaction. If any patient was actually having that side effect and we have proved it that that effect was caused by that particular medication, be bad or good, it will be considered an adverse drug reaction. And this is the thing that we actually study. We gather all the adverse events and we try to find out the adverse drug reactions, what problems were caused by that drug while the patient was on that drug or even after it. Those All those things will be considered as adverse drug reactions. Okay, once we have ruled out that okay, this is actually causing the drug the a reaction, then it will be called an ADR, adverse drug reaction. If it's before that, anything is an adverse event. But once we establish that there is a connection with this drug to that particular event, then that event will become adverse drug reaction. Now, benefits is something, as we all know, good effects of any drug. Causal relationship is a relationship between the adverse event and the drug. If we are able to establish that a drug has actually caused the event, then it will become an adverse drug reaction, and we have a causal relationship between the drug and the reaction. All right. As we all know, clinical trials is basically a study which is organized by a group of people, the healthcare providers, in order to establish the safety and efficacy of the drug. All right. So there are various phases of these: zero, phase one, phase two, phase three. The phase four of the clinical trial, once we have conducted 3,000, we have taken the effects on 3,000, 4,000 patients, healthy volunteers, then the drug is released into the market once it is approved. So it's approved, it's into the market. Now the phase four of the clinical trial starts, and that trial will last throughout the life cycle of the drug. So clinical trial का एक part, one part of clinical trials is pharmacovigilance. That is phase 4 of clinical trials. All right, there's one thing that we do when we are doing pharmacovigilance, that's called a DChallenge. This is one way to establish if the event was actually caused by the drug or not. It is a way to establish a causal relationship between the drug and the event. So, in order to establish a causality, that okay, this was actually caused by this drug, we have to have a solid method. So, this is one of the methods. What DChallenge does is that okay, I started taking paracetamol, and in a couple of hours I started having pain in my stomach, cramps. So this is an adverse event on paracetamol. Now what happens is the doctor will say that okay, you're having too much problems with your stomach because of that drug probably, so let's do one thing, let's just stop the medication for a bit. So paracetamol was stopped by the doctor. Now the adverse event has disappeared. The patient was taking paracetamol, stopped taking it, the cramping, the abdominal discomfort was gone. So it's a clear evidence that okay, uh, the the drug was actually causing the stomach pain. The paracetamol was actually causing it. So this is called DChallenge. Now here with this method we can establish that okay, patient दवाई ली, साइड इफेक्ट हुआ, दवाई बंद की, साइड इफेक्ट बंद. सो इसका मतलब दवाई का जो साइड इफेक्ट वो दवाई का ही होगा. सो ये एक एडवर्स इवेंट बन जाती है, क्लियर कट एडवर्स ड्रग रिएक्शन. So D-challenge is something that we do, that we stop the dosage of that particular medication, or we decrease the dosage of that particular medication and see if the side effects have been removed or they are persistent or what they are doing. So D-challenge is a process in which we actually stop the drug. ReChallenge is another way that we can do that. ReChallenge is something that we do, okay, I started the drug, had the side effect, I stopped the drug, I had the side effect gone. So side effect was gone when once I stopped the drug. So what I'll do is, just for checking, I'll start the drug again and see if I have that effect or not. So I restarted the drug, and once I restarted taking the medication, I again developed the side effect. That is called ReChallenge. D-challenge, in which the first step in which we stop the medication for a while, and that thing will be called a D-challenge. But if we restart it, if we restart the medication and the adverse event has restarted, it means that okay, the adverse event is actually because of the drug. Now again, I stop it again, I de-challenge it again, I stop taking the medication again, and my side effect is gone again. So we'll know that okay, there is a causal relationship between the drug and the event. So this is one way to establish uh, an adverse drug reaction, one way to distinguish an adverse drug reaction from an adverse event. All right. So a positive D-challenge again would be something that okay, the event resolved. If the event resolved, it's a positive D-challenge. If it did not resolve and it kept going on, so it will be a negative D-challenge. Okay, D-challenge was unsuccessful. The medication didn't cause it; it just happened to the patient. All right. So once we have gathered all the information about the patient, about the adverse event, what the patient was taking, what the patient was not taking, what his medical history was. Once we establish all that data will enter into a report. We'll prepare a report, and that report for adverse event will be called ICSR. And ICSR basically is an individual's case safety report for any adverse event. If I have five different events in during one particular dosage, then all those can be covered in one report. But for one individual, there will be one report regarding one product. So that report will be called individual case safety report. Now, what happens in that report is all the data about the patient is gathered, his name or initials, his age, his date of birth, everything will be documented in that particular ICSR. That will be called an individual case safety report. Now, another thing comes is periodic safety update report. In that, periodically we keep judging the patient on the on the
Sorry for the interruption to the connection. So we are again connecting to the sir. Hanji sir, you are visible now. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, sir. Yeah, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. All right.
Sir,
Let's begin.
please show your slides, sir.
Shall
Sir,
we
your
start, sir?
slides is not visible. Yes, sir. Sir, show your slides, please.
Is it visible now, sir?
No, sir, not till now.
Slide.
Yes, sir, it's
Let me
coming
see.
now. Just wait, sir. Yes, sir, it's coming now. Sir, actually, lastly, the slide was not moving with your speech, so please kindly try to connect with that.
I didn't get it, sir.
Sir, actually, lastly, when you were speaking, the slides were not connecting with your speech. The focus was on the first slide, sir, only. So please try to connect that, sir. Slides are also moving with your speech.
Okay. All right, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
Ah, okay. It's okay,
All
sir.
right.
Now, the slides are moving. So, yeah, sir. Sure.
Let me revise it a bit. Uh, we
Yeah.
have already
Thank
gone
you.
through the pharmacovigilance overview history, why it was started, as we all know that there was a disaster called thalidomide disaster in which a medication was had to be withdrawn because of the side effects caused to the baby while the drug was being taken by the pregnant women. So the baby was having underdeveloped limbs. We got to know about it, and people started working on it. WHO started a program called Pharmacovigilance, in which a periodic monitoring of the program of the side effects of the drug was being done even after the clinical trials. So the process of pharmacovigilance started, and now we monitor all the side effects of all the drugs being sold or marketed all over the world. So we are doing pharmacovigilance for each and every product. As of course, the country has to have infrastructure for it. India doesn't have it for now. People are doing it by a qualified person only, so it's not going in full flow in India at least. But in most of the countries, in developed countries, pharmacovigilance is going on full force, and everybody is investing. It has to be done by law. So in India, we have passed the law, but it will take some time to get in the process. All right, we know what adverse event is. I've already gone through it. Any effect, any beneficial or bad effect of any drug or anything that happened to a patient while the patient is taking the drug will be called an adverse event. So adverse drug reaction would be when we have established that okay, one side effect is being caused by one particular drug. So if we have established that causality, the relationship between the drug and the event, then we can call it adverse drug reaction. Until then, it will be called an adverse event. If we establish that okay, this is the side effect of a particular drug, then we can say okay, uh, for sure we have the causal relationship, then we can say okay, it's an adverse drug reaction, and we will no longer be calling it an adverse event. Benefits are something that are good when the patient is taking a drug. If something good happens, it's called a benefit. uh, Causal relationship, as we already discussed what it means. Clinical trials, there are various phases of clinical trials: phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. phase uh, Phase 0 to phase 3 are done either in lab or on healthy patients or healthy volunteers. I apologize for on healthy volunteers. But once the drug is released into the market after 3 years, after the clinical trials number 3, then we can release the drug into the market. The drug is approved, but it could have some more side effects after the drug is being launched into the market, because it will be taken by a larger variety of population. Some Africans will be taking it, some Americans will be taking it, some Indians will be taking it, some Chinese will be taking it. So a huge ethnicity opens up, a huge genetically different people will be taking the medication. So it could have a lot of new side effects. Pharmacovigilance is study of those side effects that were not reported during the clinical trials. Side effects could happen even after that, so we'll monitor all those effects in pharmacovigilance. DChallenge, ReChallenge is done to establish if the drug is actually causing the reaction or not. We'll give the medication to the patient. If the patient has developed some side effect or an adverse event, then we'll stop the drug. That stopping of the drug is called DChallenge. Once the drug is DChallenged, if the patient develops the side effect, keeps on having the side effect, then it's a positive DChallenge. If it doesn't, then it's a negative DChallenge. Then we take the drug again to see, let's say I took the drug, had the side effect. I stopped taking the drug. The side effect was gone. It's a positive D challenge. Now, as the side effect is gone, I'll try to take the medication again. And if I have it, the side effect again, then it's a re-challenge. It's a positive re-challenge. And if I stop it and the side effect goes again, then it's a negative one. So all the information that we gather about a patient, his medical history, his medications that he's taking, his age, his demographics, everything about him will be documented in a form, and that form is called individual case safety update report, in which every event experienced by that patient while being on a particular medication is taken into consideration into that report. So ICSR will conclude all that data. Now, this is for individual. There's something called periodic safety update report, in which a large number of patients are studied for a particular side effect or a particular drug. All those reports are collected, and they are collected at a particular space in which where we can see all the reports. We have databases, we have global databases which can be accessed by anyone, and people can see which side effect is being caused by which particular drug. So that thing will be under periodic reporting. Everybody has to do it, even ICSRs and PSURs. Both the things will have to be done by every company, whoever is making that particular product. All right, risk or a risk factor is something that is associated with a patient because of his history or his previous past or his genetic makeup. Something that is a risk to any particular well-being of a patient is called a risk factor. So risk factors
Again, we are really sorry for the interruption to the connection. So I
All
think
right,
sir
am I
has been
audible?
connected. Yes, sir, you are connected now.
All right, shall I begin?
Yeah, sir, but sir, slides are not showing. Can you share the slides, please?
Is it
It's showing, sir. It's okay. We can see the slide now.
all right?
We
So
can move
we
into.
were discussing about triaging. Triaging is a process in which we assess if the case is very very serious or it's not serious or there's no case at all. In which we decide, okay, this is the case. I have to work on priority basis, or if it's something that I can process later. All those things will be done before the case is started for processing. Once we receive an adverse event, the first thing that we'll need to do is triage that case, that okay, this is a serious one or it's a non-serious one or it's not no case at all. So how will we determine that if something is serious or not? We'll cover this in future slides. uh, Bear with me. So, triaging is a process in which we divide the cases on the basis of their seriousness. If some case is very, very serious, then we have to do it on priority basis and we have to report it to the regulatory authorities so that appropriate action can be taken about that particular drug, or if it has to be withdrawn or not. Everything will be discussed under that. So, now, we know what an adverse event is. We know what an adverse drug reaction is. We know what an ICSR is, individual case safety report, or a periodic safety update report. We know all of that. What is that? So, uh, we have also assessed that okay, this is a serious case and this is not a serious case. Now we are going to see where we can get all these ICSRs from. What happens is, in India it's not a regulation, but in US or Japan or Europe, we have this mandate. The doctors or the pharmacists or the nurses, the healthcare professionals in that country are obliged to report an adverse event. In our country, if some patient is experiencing some side effects, first of all, they don't even bother. But if they do happen to tell the physician, his doctor, then he will not do anything to report it. He will keep it to himself that okay, this patient has had this problem with this particular drug. He will not report it to the CDESCO, the Indian Authority for Pharmacovigilance. They will just keep it with themselves. It's not by law. They are not they're not abided by the law itself. So uh, this is a very crucial part of pharmacovigilance, where every pharmaceutical person or a healthcare provider has to report any side effect that he has seen. For example, I'm working as a doctor in a hospital, and I saw that my patient is having this problem. So I'll do the treatment, but I'll also call the company. Let's talk about Lipitor. Let's take this example. Lipitor is it's an atorvastatin. It's a statin for cholesterol. It used to be the biggest product ever made. Lipitor was selling like anything, but then it started causing liver problems. So what happened was that we had to remove that out of the process. The pharmacovigilance stopped or banned that drug. It was a Pfizer's drug. So whenever a doctor saw a patient that okay, I my patient has experienced this liver problem, liver function failure. So if something has happened to that patient, I'll not only provide the treatment for it. I am obliged. I'm by law. I'm obliged to call Pfizer and tell them that okay, your product Lipitor was taken by this particular patient of mine. He has this particular history. He is taking these medications and he experienced this side effect. So the company will tell that the company will generate the ICSR. They will report. They will generate this individual case safety report. A form will be filled with all the information about the patient, and it will be sent over to the WHO in US. So uh, if it's Japan, then they will send it to their welfare society. If it's Europe, they will send it to European Medicinal Agency, that is EMEA. So whichever country it is, they are obliged to. Pfizer has to report it to WHO. Pfizer has to report it to the Welfare Society. WHO has to report it to Anvisa, Brazil. So whichever country they are making the product in or they are marketing the product in, they have to inform the the authorities, and they will be the Pfizer will be informed by the healthcare providers. Even if a pharmacist saw at his pharmacy that okay, one patient reported that this is what happened to me while I was taking Lipitor, so even that pharmacist has to report it to Pfizer. Pfizer will report it to WHO. So we'll know that okay, one particular patient was taking Lipitor and he had this particular problem, and if 10,000 people had the same problem, we'll know that this problem is being caused by Lipitor. So Lipitor was withdrawn from the market. It was the biggest product of its time, but it was banned to be marketed. It is still being used in India. People are still prescribing atorvastatin, although it has been banned. Now we have rosuvastatin. So rosuvastatin is being used instead of atorvastatin, but some people are still prescribing it. So that is a thing in India that is related to conscious, not related by not forced by law. This has to be forced by law. Let me check if connection is working all right. So the thing is that these are the sources of medication of the ICSR. Any report could arise from which source? First, it could be a healthcare provider, any pharmacist, doctor, nurse, medical assistant, or a QPPV. Anybody who knows about an adverse event has to report it. So that's one source. This is spontaneous reporting. I'm doing it spontaneously. If I found somebody having a side effect, I'll report it to the authority. I'll report it to the company. So this is my obligation to do it as a healthcare provider. This will be a spontaneous thing. I did it myself. I didn't have to be forced by somebody to do it. I did it myself. So spontaneous reporting is one of the primary sources for healthcare reports about pharmacovigilance or any particular product. Now, what happens is sometimes companies have their programs like there's a product called Subsys, which is a fentanyl spray. Now they have some programs to educate people that you can't overuse it. Fentanyl is the drug of abuse, so they can't overuse it. So they have these programs to help people out. Also, it is used for terminal cancer. So everybody who is taking the medication is a terminally ill patient. So every case becomes serious. That has to be reported. So they have their own programs to talk to doctors, to talk to pharmacists about those particular events if in case anything happened. So they will do it themselves uh, for the company. So this becomes solicited. This is solicited. Somebody else is asking you to do it, so you did it and you got to know about some side effect. So that is solicited reporting. There's only two types of reports of such kind. Now sources could be different. The doctor could call you. The doctor would call the company, Pfizer. The doctor would fax them. The doctor would send them a letter. Doctor could upload it to their website. Doctor could upload it to his website. Anything he can do. These are various sources from which the reports can be generated. Also, from clinical trials. When we do clinical trials, we get to know about a lot of side effects of the drug. Those are also taken under consideration for all the effects of the drugs. Now, literature. Somebody was doing some study on some patients and found some side effects of some drug. They have to report it. So that will be under the literature. The companies have a legal foundation as per pharmacovigilance to do literature monitoring for all these cases. There will be a designated team in a particular company in which everybody will be searching for articles for side effects. They will search in on Google for articles, and if they find something, they'll have to buy it, and the article will be used as a source of that particular information, that particular side effect. Also media, some people on TV said that okay, I had this side effect from a medication taken from Pfizer, so that will be taken as a valid source and we will take that report. Regulatory authorities, companies directly informed, everything will be covered under sources. All right. So, what is exactly, how does it look? The ICSR, the individual case safety report. It looks like a normal form in which there are about 20 fields. All those fields are about that particular patient. It will start with their name or their initials, then it will go to their demographics, how old are they, what's their date of birth, which country they originate from, or and their ethnicity, all these things. Then their medical history, what if the patient had diabetes or any other medical problems that we should be concerned about, if the side effect could be a cause part of those problems. So medical history becomes extremely relevant for pharmacovigilance in order to get the causal relationship done. So what happens is all that information is input into the form, including the previous surgeries or things like that. So all the medical history will be there in one section. Then there will be concomitant medications, the medications that the was taking along with that particular drug. So all those drugs will become suspect products for us. Suspect product is a product which is supposed to cause the, which is supposedly causing the medical problem. As per the doctor, he thinks that okay, atorvastatin was causing these problems, or Lipitor was causing these problems. So the suspect would be Lipitor, but there could be other suspects, which could be a part of the medications that the patient is already taking for other ailments of his. So all this will be covered in the concomitant medication section of the form. Now, once that form is the other things in the form are risk factors, previous history of alcohol abuse or drug abuse or anything like that, any lab test, any laboratory test or any lab work was done, blood work, anything that was done for that particular patient in that particular time will be taken. Then there will be a narrative in which the person who is filling the individual case safety report, he will put his own chronologically assessed timeline, that okay, this is this kind of a patient, is he has this kind of ethnicity, this kind of age, and he was taking this, he had history of this, then he started taking this product and he had these problems, he also had all those problems, his lab tests included this and this. Everything will be in the form of a summary, which everybody could read and evaluate themselves. They don't have to go through the whole form. So all this information is filled in the report. Now, in order to qualify as an adverse event, the patient has to have some particular criteria. Those criteria are the definitive for if a particular ICSR can be taken as an ICSR or not. So in order to do that, we have four criteria. It must have four things. The patient should be identifiable. The suspect product should be identifiable. The reporter should be identifiable, and the adverse event should be identifiable. If we have all these four criteria, then the patient can be then the ICR report can be filled for that particular patient. Coding. Now, we have a dictionary called MEDRA. It's a medical dictionary, thesaurus, used for establishing that, okay, let's say in Japan, somebody had a headache. So he will not say that I had headache. Somebody has a stomach problem, he will not say that my colons are not digesting properly or something like that. He will just say, I'm having some cramps, I'm just having some headaches, it's pounding like anything, or it's throbbing like anything. So they will report it like that. But we have to establish a particular robust method to to judge, okay, everybody is talking about the same event or same disease. So if everybody has to follow that, then we have to have a dictionary, and that is MEDRA. So MEDRA is a dictionary in which all these events will be put in, and we'll see on the basis of the term. They have this hierarchy in which system organ class is taken, preferred term, low level term, low term, all these things will be taken into consideration, and then we'll decide, okay, uh, this will go, this will be coded as this. So this is called coding of adverse events. What we do is, let's say somebody said, uh, i had uh, I had a pinching pain in my head. So I'll try to search it in MEDRA if we have something relevant to it. So it will give me a number of options that, okay, this can be explained like this can be explained like. So we have to find the appropriate term, exact term for that particular event. Because if we don't, then it will be like we're talking about one thing in 10 different languages. So if we have to talk about the same thing all over the world, then we have to use this dictionary and we call it coding. Now, seriousness. In the previous slides, we saw that we can actually, let me see if the connection is working. Yeah. So, seriousness is basically the determination of accessing if a particular case, that is the report, the ICSR is serious or not. If it's very serious, then we'll have to report it within 7 days to the authority. It should reach the WHO or the particular authority within 7 days. Seventh day, it should be on their doorsteps. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So, if it's a little less serious, very serious will be fatal. Like patient died. Patient was taking substance, that is fentanyl, and the patient died. So that will become an extremely serious report, and that report has to be reported to the authorities within 7 days. If it's not that serious, it's very like headache or something, then it can be, we can wait for around 90 days or something. 90 days is the perfect cycle for reporting the known serious events. Then we can also decide that, okay, this is not an event. The patient was taking the medication, the patient started medication on 14th, but the event started on 12th. So obviously the event is not valid for that particular drug. The event started before the drug, so it could not be associated with the drug itself. So on that basis we decide whether to put it under serious category or not. And just like I give you an example of being serious, that is death, other things are also very serious, like inpatient hospitalization. Matlab, which means that the patient was hospitalized for 24 hours. If the patient was as hospitalized for 24 hours, then that case will become most serious. So the patient had an incapacity, or his hand didn't work, or his legs stopped working, or they deranged in some way, then it's a very serious event. Another thing is birth defect, that is congenital anomaly. Somebody was born with that anomaly, just like in case of thalidomide we discussed before. So if a patient has had that kind of a problem, then it will be called uh, a birth defect or a congenital anomaly. That's also very, very serious. Again, if something doesn't fall in all these four criterias and something is still very serious, like a heart attack, it could be life threatening. A heart attack could be life threatening. So it will be considered very, very serious. They have a list called IME list, important medical events list. It's released every year or every 6 months, and the new serious indications like these are entered into that. If something comes under that, then we'll also take it as serious. Now, seriousness is done. It comes to causality. Now, how will we know exactly, other than DChallenge and ReChallenge, how will we know that a particular product is causing that problem or not? So, if we have to do that, I think the best way would be to understand the scales. This is beyond our scope of this presentation, but still I'll go through. These are, if you look at the presentation, you can see. All right, you can see there are some criteria. Are the previous conclusive reports of this reaction? Has there ever been previous reports of that particular infection or reaction? Did the adverse event appear after the drug was given? After or before? If it was after, then it's related. The reaction improved when the drug was continued. That is DChallenge. Another criteria is ReChallenge. All these criteria will give +1 or +2 for each point. If somebody had the event after the drug, so it will be +1. So we'll calculate it 10 questions. If something comes above 9, if the total reaches above 9, then that event is associated with that particular drug, and the doctor will decide. The medical reviewer, we call it. So the medical reviewer will decide, okay, this case is actually related to the particular drug, and the drug is actually the culprit. So then we have the causality. We know that the drug is actually causing the adverse drug reaction, not an adverse event. It becomes an adverse drug reaction if something comes above 9. on this scale. This scale is called Naranjo's scale, the scientist who gave this scale. All right. Expedited reporting, we have touched this before. If somebody died, then it has to be reported in 7 days. If it was serious but not death, it was not fatal, it was just serious, then it will be reported within 15 days. If it's not serious, then it will be reported within day 90. Within 90 days, it has to be reported to the authorities. All right. So this is about expedited. If somebody died, then it has to be within 7 days. So that's where triaging comes. If we don't triage before the cases, then we will not know which category to put the case in. We will not be able to process the case within 7 days, and we will not be able to report it to the authority. Death is quite serious on a drug, and if it's a drug reaction, then we have to take it very seriously and take immediate action on it. So it has to be reported within 7 days to the authorities. If it's not serious, then it can wait, no problems. All right, aggregate reporting is what we discussed before, the periodic safety update report, in which we keep collecting the ICSRs, the individual case reports. I received it for one patient, I collected it. Two patients collected it. Three patients collected it. 10, 20, 30, 40. In the whole year, let's say I received 100 cases on Lipitor for liver failure, then it becomes a signal. So collectively, if I see it on a larger scale, then I'll know, okay, this drug is actually causing the problem. So that is aggregate reporting. In collected reports, so they are called either periodic safety update reports or the developmental safety update reports. They are done every yearly or so. It depends upon the country. Every country has their own regulations for it. Every regulating authority has their different regulations for it. All right. Now, once we have all the ICSR and PSURs, there are only two things. So ICSR, PSUR, and DSUR. So all those things will be entered in from that form to a particular database, just like Facebook. They have these softwares, Oracle, Argus. The name of the software is Argus, Ares G, AERS, AERS, PVNet, Rep Clinical. There are other than that also VG Base, VG Flare, VG Flow. All these things are databases. They are essentially the softwares available online for everybody to access, every doctor to access, every nurse to access. So, okay, this problem is being caused, or if it has been caused by a particular drug or not. So these are the software that you will be working on if you get a job in pharmacovigilance. So ARSG, Argus are the biggest databases of the world. They are used in almost every company, Argus and ARSG. Governing bodies, every country has their own body for it. India is CDSCO takes care of it. In US, FDA takes care of it. European Medicinal Agency takes care of Europe. The whole European Union is governed by EMA or EMEA, European Medicinal Agency, EMEA or EMA. Japan has their own labor and welfare department, which takes care of pharmacovigilance. Every country, and visa for Brazil, and all the countries have their different names. But the biggest one is obviously US FDA, and the second biggest one is EMA, that is European Medicinal Agency. Now, all these agencies work in collaboration with some bodies that monitor it. The primary one being WHO, the World Health Organization. It's been taking care of this program since 1978, and Uppsala is the center in which all these things are done for WHO.
Excuse me, sir.
International conference. Yes.
Actually, slides are not moving.
Uh,
It's
this is
the
on the last slide.
This is on the screen is casualty assessment.
Is it
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. This is visible now, sir.
okay? All right. Anyways, it's the last slide,
Okay, you
sir.
can.
Yeah. All right. So the EMEA, the FDA, the MHLW, and Visa, all these authorities work under the guidance or guidelines provided by WHO, ICH, CIOMS, and ISOP. These are the bodies that actually govern it. The definitions are very important. The names are very important. They basically govern the whole pharma world. So pharmacovigilance also comes under that, and they provide us with guidelines. Okay, this is what you need to do. All these guidelines: the 7-day cycle, the 15-day cycle, the 90-day cycle, seriousness, non-seriousness, adverse event, why something is serious, why not, what will be IME list. All these things are provided by these bodies only, and they are governed, they are regulated by FDA or enforced by FDA, EMEA, and respective authorities of the world. That's about it. This is a basic overview. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir. Sir, actually, I have one or two questions.
Yes, sir.
So the first question is, who can report, sir, an adverse event? Is it can be the person should be a medical professional or anyone can report?
Everybody can report, sir, but the thing is that it has to come through a valid healthcare professional. Like if I
Okay.
experience some event on a particular drug, I'll report it to the pharmacist or to the doctor. Then he will report it to the company. I can also directly report it, but a report is only validated once it comes through a healthcare provider or it was under observation of a healthcare provider. But even if I took the medication from the market, even if it's the over-the-counter medication, still if I had some problem, I can call the company up and tell them. What happens is in India it doesn't happen, but in other countries they have company's name list, a company's phone number listed on the drug packaging. So in the package itself, you will have the phone number of the company. If you have any medical questions, that is the medical information department. And if you have any reports to report, then you call the call center or something like that. Then they have these all connected lines and they can regulate you or deviate to that. Then if the report is coming from the patient, we'll have to validate it from the healthcare provider. The patient will tell, okay, this is the patient, this is the doctor that I go through. So the company will call that particular doctor or mail that person or fax that person and then get the information from them. So it has to be
Okay.
validated ultimately.
Sir, and how can the report tell us that the drug has an adverse event?
Uh, for me, anything is an adverse event. For a layman, for a normal person, everything is an adverse event. It will not be. I will not know that okay, is it serious or not. I'll just know that okay, I had some problem. So I'll go to my doctor and I'll tell him. Then he'll take care of the problem, proceedings, and everything else. So
Okay,
I
okay.
have
So
to go to the
thank you so
doctor.
much,
Or
sir.
I have to call the company.
Sir, this was
Thank you,
really
sir.
an impressive session with descriptive, clear knowledge and of the pharmacovigilance. So I thank you on the behalf of all the delegates who attend the seminar. So I hope that all the delegates are satisfied with the visible incorporation of the pharmacovigilance in the pharmacy. So thank you so much, sir, for this informative session. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir. Any more questions? Put it in the comments. I'll answer everything for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.